Welcome to GTM Confessions, where we share what it takes to be a go-to-market professional today. Because it is freaking hard and it is far from the glamorous picture that social media often paints. Consider this your weekly go-to-market therapy session. I'm your host, Stephanie Cox. In this episode, I chat with Mason Cobsy, CEO at Scrappy ABM, about what it really means to have product market fit, why you can't implement ABM until you have it, how to define your ICP and target accounts, and so much more. Welcome to the show, Mason. So excited to have you.
Stephanie, thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
We are going to talk a lot today about product market fit, account-based marketing, successes, failures, you name it. So I think maybe to kind of level set us before we get started, there is a ton of conversation in the go-to-market world about what is product market fit and how do you know if you have it? So let's maybe start there with your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, product market fit, I'm actually going to be really honest. Someone's actually asked me this, and I've got really great definitions for everything else. I don't know that I've actually really sat down and thought through like a true, well thought out definition. So we'll get to do it together. But as I look at product market fit, it is simply just knowing the exact market in incredibly granular detail that your product actually serves in a way that is highly repeatable. So the reason and again, I'm going to verbally process it with you. But when you think about the idea of markets are just who do we actually serve? So that's not just the businesses themselves, but also the individuals. It's a lot around firmographics and psychographics and technographics. So again, I'm thinking really granular into those individual people. And as it relates to the actual product side, I've worked with many companies and talked with many people that have had one-hit wonder situation where they'll do something extraordinarily well. And what they realized is it was actually more the client's side and their situation. And I'll actually give an example of me. We have a show that we run on our podcast business that's in the top 0.5% of globally listened to shows, consistently in the top 5 of US-based marketing podcasts. Huge show. It's Do This, Not That with Jay Schwedelson. He had a great promotional engine. He's a really good host. He had a lot of the things baked into him that made him have a great podcast that I could have never given him as an agency. So for me to take credit for that is disingenuous. And I don't market myself as we build top shit. I tried for actually a little bit and I realized, it's more Jay. It's not me. So that's not the product we sell. We sell a great process that captures good thought leadership, but you have to have original thoughts. So I can't make thoughts for you. So that's the repeatable nature is, can we consistently deliver a great result for a market to some extent, regardless of the uniques about them, but because of the uniques about them that are consistent across this subset of market. Does that make sense?
It does. Well, and
Cool.
I think it's an interesting point because
Just made it up.
Because oftentimes, one of the things that I think companies tend to say is, we have product market fit, but what they really have is a CEO or a thought leader who's been there, done it before, and so people buy from them because they know their past success, or they get a lot of funding because they know their past success. And I always think about product market fit as how easy is sales? Is it easy to sell to the same people that look the same, back to your point around, are they the same type of company? Are they the same type of buyer? Are they buying the same thing from you? And is that easy or is that hard? And I think easy and hard are interesting definitions when it comes to sales because, some people are like, oh yeah, sales is easy. We get all of these leads, which is a separate rant I could go on. But one of the things is, but do people want to buy from you immediately? Do they want to, if you raise your prices, will they continue to buy from you? Do they find what you have to be essential? Not how great your product is, not whether or not there's a need, but how many people buy it and how quickly do they buy it?
Yeah. I'm building out a workshop for B2BMX. And one of the things that I've been digging into is specifically product market fit. And the actual definition just came back to me, which is would your buyers be deeply disappointed if your product went away? Is how that is measured from a survey perspective. So to your point, it's not how good or bad the product is, it's how essential it is for your buyers. And again, Scrappy ABM is probably a really great case study that I'm pretty close to because we're an 18-month-old business. And I think we established product market fit realistically about 6 or 7 months ago because sales got much easier. Our customer lifetime value went up significantly. I don't even know that it was necessarily a change in the product, but more the how we marketed it that made it resonate more deeply. But to your point, it's how easy is sales, because I am a founder-led sale until like 4 weeks ago. So I now have an account executive, and we're seeing how easy it is for him to sell without being the founder. So I think that I'll have a real test this year to know if we actually truly have product market fit. Because if we do, we should be able to scale incredibly easily. If we have significant scaling challenges based on an inability to sell because it's no longer the founder and past success and whatever that looks like, then yeah, we'll have a real problem, a real challenge. So yeah, I mean, I think we've got it. I think changing out a founder-led sale to an AE-led sale will be a really good test. But anyway, maybe that's a follow-up episode on how we either really accomplish product market fit or estimated a business in 6 months. We'll see.
Well, hopefully it's the former, not the latter.
But I feel pretty confident.
Well, I think it's interesting that you say that, though, because I think one of the things that people don't understand is you can have product market fit and then you can also lose it once you have it, like down the road, because the market changes.
Yes.
So let's say a company has it, sales is easy. How does that factor into their account-based marketing strategy? Because I've seen a lot of companies, try and launch into account-based marketing and be unsuccessful with it, because they actually don't have product market fit and they don't actually know what their ideal customer looks like based on who actually buys and uses their product.
Yeah, I mean, I think you actually just answered the question, which is like, if you don't know who your buyers are, it's really hard to do account-based marketing. So again, there are some stats that I keep leaning into of, according to Terminus in 2020, 94% of B2B organizations were building an ABM program. But according to an Ascend 2 study that was done in 2023, only 1 in 5 ABM programs have been deemed successful. There's a couple of things in that. One, really, 94%. So I think everyone was claiming to do ABM in 2020. I don't think many companies were. And then secondly, I think that there are very well documented reasons why ABM fails. There's typically about 5 core reasons. We don't need to go into all of them right now, but one of them is targeting. So when we talk about ABM, there are a lot of people that use ABM as an experimental strategy to move up market and to say, well, we got to go after bigger whales when that's a new market and we don't have established product market fit in new markets because it's a new market. So if the ABM strategy is an experiment on the market we're going after, of course it's destined to fail, because ABM is not actually about necessarily moving up market. And that's maybe a hot take, but ABM is about getting more of your current best fit customers. So if you don't have these customers, it is disingenuous to say you're running an ABM program because you're running an experiment. And that's fine. But if you want to run ABM, it is starting by actually looking at your current customers and saying who are the best ones that we want to work more with, and then building marketing programs to go get more of those customers. So hopefully that answers the question on, like, if you don't have product market fit, or you don't know what your market is, or you don't know who your customers are, you should be running an ABM program, because ABM is really just knowing and saying, like, with deep conviction, I know this is good for you, and I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure it gets in your hands.
So are you saying that I can just go to my VP of sales and say, hey, create me a target account list? Who all should be involved in that conversation? Or is it a sales only initiative, which is what oftentimes I hear the most, right? Is sales determines which accounts we go after.
I'm going to be really embarrassing for a moment. I have not heard anyone talk about the lifetime gross profit to customer acquisition cost ratio that much until like the past year. And it's because I've gotten into like business owner information, having to own my own business. And I'm realizing, oh, like that's the fundamental economic unit of a business, is like, how much money does it cost me to make more money? So when I look at best customer, it is most easily defined by your highest lifetime gross profit to customer acquisition cost customers. So that's best. Now, granted, maybe you're a service-based business like me. I'm actually happy to take a slightly lower profit customer if they're more fun to work with, because I enjoy my life. So like there's that side. But as a generalization across most businesses, that's the fundamental economic unit of the business that then indicates best customer. And I don't know about you, but marketing and sales is like the CAC side to that equation. It has nothing to actually do with like lifetime. That's all CS. Or gross profit, which is finance.
Right?
So that's how we actually figure out the list. It's looking at, again, current customer profile. And I actually think it starts with the LTGP to CAC ratio to understand the economics of your business at an average. And then the goal is to find the customers that have the highest. And you find that through talking with finance. Then you also look at the customers that have the highest NPS scores to actually show, hey, these are our happiest customers. And typically NPS relates directly with lifetime value, typically, because they're happy, they're going to stick around. And then you can actually, as marketing and sales, determine, okay, well, which of these customers were easiest to acquire? Like, where can we get way more of these customers? And I always give the example, my most profitable client is a one-of-one client. Like, and I mean that, I'm sure if I really, really dug into it, I could find more, but like in practice, and I mean this very sincerely, there's probably 100 companies that are like this, and they don't even know they need our help. They're not product aware. They're not problem aware. So like I could build my business around this really weird one niche client that is highly profitable for me, or I could go after the other clients that are slightly less profitable, but there's thousands or tens of thousands of them. So like easier to acquire from a CAC perspective. So when you marry those two together, that's how you then determine best fit. So your goal is to identify trends based on revenue, headcount, growth stage, organizational structure, and technology as the foundational components. And then that informs your criteria for your ICP, which then informs the target account list. And I think your ICP is really, when taken to its extreme, it should be a really small list that should reflect the serviceable, attainable market, which is, sorry, I'm getting really in the weeds.
This is the stuff I love though, because it's the stuff that no one talks about. They're just like, oh, we're going to create a list of like dream accounts. Great. But like, how real, like, do you have product market fit for those dream accounts? Are they going to make you money? Are they actually going to drive CS crazy because they're going to have tons of needs? They're going to have tons of product requests. And in reality, you're going to lose money on them. So I personally love this.
Yeah. So if I can just come back up for air, because I'm hearing myself and I'm really lost in the acronyms. Essentially, the goal is what clients make you the most profit, and then realistically, how many of those customers could you get in the next 5 years? If you can figure out those two things, that should then inform the list that is your serviceable attainable market, and that should be the size of your pool of accounts. And then I like to have that as the core pool that we then pull different account lists from that are campaign specific or themed specific or trigger specific. So it's an easier way to align an organization around who we're going after. So to make this very real, and then I know we've gotten really deep in the weeds on this, but like your serviceable market should be equivalent to like 2 to 3 times the number of meetings you would want on your calendar in the next 5 years to hit your growth goals. Like that's how you get that size list. And then again, if your organization can all rally around and say like, these however many customers are the people that we do want. Now, how we get them, totally fine. Or the order and priority, totally fine. But these are the customers that we would want in the next 5 years. Great. And then if you constantly pull back from that pool over and over and over again, and that becomes the market that you actually build an ABM program around, you then get the compounding effect of brand awareness and recency bias for them, because you're more likely to be top of mind because you've consistently gone after the same market for an extended period of time.
No, I love that. And I specifically love how you talk about really everyone within go-to-market functional areas being involved in that conversation. Because oftentimes I think when people hear go-to-market, they think sales. It's our sales strategy. Or some people will say, well, it's our marketing and sales strategy. But it really is CX has a seat at the table, product has a seat at the table. And I think even though I know not all of us love our friends in finance, but finance needs to have a big part of the conversation because they can give us data that oftentimes we don't think about. Sales isn't thinking about how much money that customer is making us 5 to 10 years later. They're thinking about what's the ARR I'm going to get year one. What's the first deal I can close? What's my expansion revenue? Things like that. So when you think about, how people put together maybe a target account list today, what are some of the common struggles that you see besides not involving the right people? Is there anything else that also is problematic for people when they create these ABM account lists?
I mean, we just walked through like a lot of it.
Yeah.
The big takeaway that I want people to walk away with is your target account list starts with your current customers. And if you want to make it really basic language, it's just a lookalike list of your top 20%. And some people are going to hate me for that because they're like, no, ABM is about moving up market. And again, as I think through it, sure, there should be some accounts that are a bit of a stretch, and that's fine. But there should still be trends and themes and reasons and rationale that you can then showcase to make sure that people actually resonate with the accounts that you're going after. This phrase pops in my head, but just like inbound is a bit of an experiment. Inbound is experimentation, meaning like if somebody comes in, you're like, well, shoot, we'll see what happens. But like ABM is about efficiency and knowing what is best. So inbound is experimentation. ABM is knowing. So if you know who your best customer is, why would you go after anybody else unless it's an ego thing? And I hate to say it. Actually, I don't hate to say it that way. It is exactly that. Like founders, I have been guilty of it.
Same.
Even in the past 6 months, like I lean into some past experiences of like working with super large brands, and we don't work with some of those brands now. So like it's just not. It's ego, so that we can have the great logo on our website to showcase our incredible impact. And like, there's an argument and a case to be made that yes, like if you can get the logo on your site, you may see a lift. Like, I'm sure that there are those cases to be made, but I don't know. I like knowing and like efficiency and confidence and conviction, because I just feel better selling with conviction and knowing that I'm going to make a better life for our team because of the quality customer that we bring in. And everyone's going to win. Everybody's going to be happier versus like just trying it to see what happens. And then we end up taking a bunch of money from somebody that like didn't get any help from us and then ends up hating us in the market. And if we do that enough times, you get negative word of mouth and you end up decreasing your market share. So I don't know. That'd be my thought. Start with your current customers.
Well, and I love that because I think product market fit, to your point, is different. And like when you go after SMB or mid-market than it is enterprise. We all, I think, at least for me, I've 20 years of a career in go-to-market, and it's always like, oh, don't you want to go up market to the enterprise? That's where all the real money is. That's where you, and I'm like, I understand that. But also they have totally different requirements. They have totally different needs. They are going to need a lot more handholding. They're going to need higher security requirements, higher, customer success help. And if you have a software product, they're going to need a lot more functionality than you probably deliver for your existing customer base. So you almost have to find product market fit again. And if you try and sell them what's been successful for your current base that's down market, it's not going to work. And you're just going to end up with a ton of infighting among your teams because sales is selling something the product can't really do, or services you can't really deliver. Your CX team is going crazy because they now have a lot more demands on them that they're not used to having for something they can't necessarily deliver on like they have before. So I think it's really important to think about who your current customers are. And there can be some of those stretches, but they should be like a stretch, not like on a different continent or in a different world.
For anyone that's listening is like, man, this guy is divorced from reality, because like every business starts small with their companies. And again, I'd like to remind, like, I'm 18 months into building a business. Our first customers were like pre-seed companies that were like trying to raise funding. And now we work with a couple of $1 billion clients. So like in 18 months, I did that stretch, but it was all based on inbound. And then inbound was the experimentation where like I kept our prices low to figure out where our market was the right fit and make sure that we delivered super well. And now we do. And we know exactly who we serve best. So I've raised our rates because I have greater confidence in our ability to deliver on those things. And rates are just based on like the anticipated returns. So like an average program for us gets an 8x return. So I feel really confident charging whatever I want when the average is 8x. So that's based on confidence because of product market fit. Versus, again, if you're just going to go after the enterprise, you can't guarantee returns because it's an experiment. It's like you should charge a reasonable rate, but like also, man, this is one thing that I've never heard anybody talk about, but like I've refunded clients because like we didn't do good for them. Um, and
Or
I
they're
don't
not
mean
the
this,
right fit. Like
yeah,
you
because
might be
they
able to do
weren't the
great
good,
work.
yeah.
Yep.
I want to be clear, like I've given 4 refunds out of 80 deals, but those 4 were flyers for me where I was like, I think we can help, but I'm not sure. And we got into it and we couldn't. So I was like, well, what's the worst they can say about me? I worked for them for 3 months. They paid me. It didn't work. I refunded them in full and said, I'm so sorry this didn't pan out. Like, I'm happy to refer you to somebody else that like is a good fit. Um, I feel fine and I sleep great at night. So again, from a product market fit perspective, if you're going to go after experiments, man, like just do it at a rate that you know you can confidently deliver on. And then once you've actually seen these incredible outsized returns, then you raise your rates to actually capture that market more effectively. But like that is the process. It's just not an ABM program. It's an inbound program in order to actually generate that interest and then transition it into more of an intentional strategy moving forward.
Do you think with that then, if you're, because I love this idea of like thinking about inbound as experimentation to some extent, do you think then that's a separate like subset of specifically like sales teams or even like CX people that get those types of prospects and then eventually customers so they can learn from it versus allowing it to be, I think what we've all seen sometimes is you get an inbound come in, the deal maybe closes quickly. It does not look like everyone else. And then it's like new shiny object. Everyone's like, let's go chase all of these. How do you think about like balancing that when you might already have product market fit, you have a really well-defined ICP that you can go after, but there is the new shiny object?
Yeah, it's a great question. I can't speak to every organization and just talk about what we do because that does happen for us. We had a really, really great company that's like a $300 million tech company that is in the HR space and a bit of a household name, if I'm being honest. So like when they came in, I was like, well, shoot, like this is cool. And what they wanted from us wasn't for us to build their program, which is what we've done historically, and historically past year and a half. They were asking, can you train us? Can you just teach us how to do it? And I was like, well, first of all, that's what I love to do. I love teaching and training. But we've never done that. So like, and I was honest with them in the sales process. I was like, I'm confident we could figure it out, but like straight up, we've never just outright not done hands-on keyboard and only done training. We typically teach and train our clients through the implementation process. And we're like, so we built this. Here's why we built it this way. Here's how it works. So it's just different. So what we have set up in our organization is anything weird and new and different, I personally handle with the support of my COO. And he and I sit in a team in our org chart called the R&D department, which is just, this is new, weird, and different. Let's see if this works. And then I hate to say it this way, but like I cash those checks and just leave the money in the account. And like if it works, great.
Great.
If it doesn't, refund. Because like I just don't I just don't. I don't want the negative word of mouth floating around for things that were experiments. And I'm honest with customers in the sales process to say, this is not our normal. If you're willing to take the risk with us, I'll give you a good deal on it. And then what I would just ask in return is like, if this is great for you, could you just be a testimonial on a case study? If it doesn't work out, we knew on the like going in, it was a risk. And I want to be super clear. I don't tell our customers that are risks, I'm going to refund you. It's never in contract language because it's the ability to then surprise and delight when we do it. But it's still my choice to do it as a business owner. So that is how we handle it. I think that's a good method.
I do too.
And when I've looked at really large scale organizations, they do inevitably have this team that's just really good and is kind of the experimentation team. And that's how you continue to have innovation. And then once they've figured out a new approach or a new thing, they turn it into a standardized approach and a new process that then gets rolled out across the rest of the organization. And that becomes a part of the standard services or products or whatever it needs to look like.
Well, and I think that's what's so important is because I think when you try and put it with your existing team who aren't thinking about it in terms of experimentation, it becomes a big distraction. It's shiny object syndrome. And I think it also just causes a lot of like internal chaos because there isn't like a procedure built out or, for how you handle these, what you do, how you sell it,
Yeah.
etc.
And like team members, and forgive me for saying it this way for any team member that's listening, but like they just need to know what their clear roles and responsibilities and expectations are in order to do their job well and to have confidence in speaking to a client. But like if something's new, there is no role and responsibility that's clear. There are no clear expectations. Everything was made up because it's new. So like
Yes.
it's not a fair position unless, and I hate to say it this way, like you hire somebody and the job expectation is you're the experimentation department.
Yes.
But most of our team isn't. So to just give them things that are all experiments, or to throw in just one experiment customer in the mix of everything else, just makes it really confusing for everybody,
Agreed.
and then they get a subpar experience.
I agree. So let's say you have your ABM strategy defined. You have a great target account list, you have product market fit, and you get ready to launch it. What I think sometimes people are like, okay, we got a target account list, we're going to go after them. And it's really not that easy. So, what do you think some of those biggest misconceptions are that companies have when they get started?
Uh, they just say the same thing to everybody is kind of the first one. So my first ABM program, I targeted Inc. 5000 tech companies. And for whatever reason, the Inc. 5000 website said that there were 0 repeat winners from one year to the next. And I was like, sweet, like that's great. So my messaging was, don't be a one hit wonder. And for context, sending don't be a one hit wonder to a bunch of tech CEOs that have just won Inc. 5000, not a good play. My data was also incorrect. So there were multiple repeat winners. And they made sure to let me know. So the reason I
Well, you
outlined it like
probably got
that,
a high response rate on that, though, right? In terms
high
of like
response
not
rate.
necessarily positive response, but
I think
response.
I think for a solid week, I was probably one of the most hated people in Inc. 5000 tech companies because I was just unintentionally so rude, and I just didn't know, and I was
Yeah.
naive. So a couple of things of like I built an ABM program, but really what I did is I built one outbound sales sequence that said the same thing to 700 different CEOs, which is like huge mess. So again, the goal of an ABM program is to get nuanced and personalized and specific to those individual accounts. So yes, templates are great, but like have something, like have some kind of consistent through line. If you're going to go in a one-to-one channel, AKA email or LinkedIn DMs or something along those lines. And if you're going to do more mass communication, meaning like 700 people, like use the appropriate channels where that aligns. So things like an ad program that is done through LinkedIn would have been good where the messaging is want to repeat, like, and don't make it a negative, but talk about the positive looking forward. Like, and then you just have this asset that is something to the extent of Inc. 5000 is based on percentages of growth. So if you'd like to win again next year, because of how incredible you did this year, it's going to be even harder. We've helped companies just like you generate year over year wins on the Inc. 5000 and maintain at least 30% year over year growth. If you're not sure how you're going to hit an even greater percentage growth next year, we're here to help. And then you give a bunch of free resources. Like that is personalized, but in the appropriate context. So it's an ad program, so it still works across 700, but it's specific because it's only for the 700 that were Inc. 5000 tech based companies that are at the executive level making growth based decisions. If I'm going to send them an email, I need to directly address how they accomplished that growth last year and ask questions on it looks like you're in the process of hiring. Is that how you plan to achieve consent? Like, what do I know about them uniquely and specifically that then makes the messaging personalized to them? So I didn't do that. And I think that's what most people miss is they just pull a list and they say the same thing to everybody. And then as a result, it doesn't resonate with anybody.
Well, and I think, I love where MarTech tools have went in the last, you know, 10 years. I always tell people, like, you've not lived until back in the day when there wasn't email marketing programs. Like when I first started my career, you would send like via Outlook and you'd BCC people because like email marketing software didn't exist. But now we're like on the other end of the pendulum, which is you can just load it into a cadence and we can send the same template email to 700 people and be surprised that we don't get a ton of responses. So I think your comment about there's personalization that needs to happen no matter the channel. The level of personalization depends on the channel. And that isn't, especially when it's one-to-one communications, it has to be a lot more in depth. That's part of the reason I love when people do like personalized video outreaches, not when they record the same video and send it to everyone, but like when the video is like aimed at me, it's quick, easy, especially if you're going after someone in the C-level. I think what people don't realize is, especially if you go after CEOs read, if not at least skim, but they skim every single email they get. And so if you have something that's impactful in there or something that's different, you're going to get more likelihood of a response or at least pass along to the right person in the organization.
Yeah, the only other thing that I'd add is I think there is still an over-reliance on technology. So again, surprise, surprise, the guy that works at Scrappy ABM thinks that. But I think that we got our channels confused, and we have now sales as a mass market communication channel through outbound sequencing tools, and we have marketing trying to do one-to-one communication at scale. And the goal of marketing is to reach the market. The goal of sales is to convert individual buyers. So I think if we actually just reassessed the role within the context of the program for what each team should be intentionally doing, you then get greater results because they're more focused on what they actually can do best versus trying to do what the other team should have been doing.
Nope, I think that's a really great point. So kind of tied to that, what tactics do you think are working best in ABM today? Tactics or channels, I guess.
So I want to give really quick context of like, I've come up primarily through content and then learned ABM strategy. So I, for example, run ABM programs that don't typically lean super heavy on ads as a starting point. So like, I know I'm very odd. I'm a weird in the ABM space.
But I love that though. We could talk a whole separate conversation about ads and whether or not they're effective.
Yeah. So what I'm going to back into this for a moment of the right channels depend on the number of customers you need. So when I talk with service-based businesses, they're like, we need like 20 or 30 deals a year. I'm like, cool. It's like podcasting is probably your best channel because if you did 2 interviews a week with an 80% guest booking rate, you can interview upwards of 80 to 100 people on an annual basis, at which point, if you can then convert them or get referrals from them to the tune of 50%, you've got 50 deals in your pipeline. If you close half decently, then that won't get you to all 20 or 30, but it'll get you a lot of the way there. And it's going to be 2 hours a week, plus some form of automation technology around guest sourcing and booking. So like, that's probably a really great channel. If you need hundreds of deals, you're going to need to look at something a little bit more scalable. So at that point, you may need to look into ad programming. No one beats email. Email is still the highest converting channel. So when I look at it, it's less channel specific. It's more what are the goals? And then additionally, where is the buyer in their journey? So the best channel at the awareness stage is going to be ad programming and organic social content because that has the greatest reach for an unaware audience. But once they're opted in and you can actually do some form of direct communication or email communication, like email is easily the best channel. And then once they get really low funnel, or if you don't want to use the word funnel, low progression model or low in the buyer journey and the consideration or decisions, whatever your terminology is, it's website content. Like, and just getting and driving people to the specific pages on your website, however they need to get there. That could be through outbound email and LinkedIn DMs or an ad program or any number of things. But like actual just conversion-based content on the website that no longer talks about the problem or viable ways of solving the problem, but it's like, this is exactly how we solve problems for companies just like you. Do you want us to solve this problem for you? Like, that's what converts. So those are the 2 answers. So start with the goals, back into it based on what are the most efficient ways to actually hit these goals repeatedly from an not just like scale, because if we're looking at just how to reach the most eyeballs, it's going to be ads. Duh. Like you can spend a ton of money on ads, but like what is
Really
going to
quickly.
get us, yeah, like, but what is going to get us the highest level of direct engagement with the right buyers as quickly as humanly possible, while also measuring the need for reach depending on what the goals are.
One of the things that I think was interesting that you said was organic social-based content. I think oftentimes people don't think about content marketing as part of ABM. They think of it as like something completely separate. So can you talk to me a little bit about what role you think content creation and thought leadership should play in ABM?
It's like half the equation.
Say it louder for people in the back who do not understand that.
So I'll quickly outline when we work with clients. This is the team that every client gets from us. It's a strategist that builds the full program and measures out results and all that kind of stuff. They do get a project manager and account manager that's like, but like that's agency specific. So like probably don't need that internally. That should also be probably your strategist. But then it's a RevOps. So that's helping on all things within the context of tracking, channel activation, list segmentation, triggers. And then it's a content writer. So like there's 4 roles on our teams for all of our clients. And like one of them is content. And then we've got a 4D framework that we use to build all of our programs. And it's data, distribution, destination, and direction. Destination's content. And you know what works in distribution? Content. Because like you have to say things in distribution to get people to actually then go to destination. So like when I say it's half of it, it's actually half of it. It's distribution and destination. So that's the role of content. And the easier way to think through it from a thought leadership perspective, I've started to categorize content into 2 buckets, generally speaking. It's problem specific and it's product specific. So like nobody looks for solutions until they know they have a problem. So like if you look at most of the content that Scrappy ABM produces, it's literally 80 to 90% problem content. It's like, this is hard. Here are all the reasons it's hard. These are all the reasons it fails. Do you not want your ABM program to fail? Here are some ways to not make it fail. And like it's mainly though just educating people on like, you're not crazy. This is hard. You should probably get some help or like figure it out. And that's it. And then if you go to our website, there's no thought leadership. Our website is exclusively products. It's like you can buy our stuff, you can subscribe to our newsletter, you can go listen to our podcast, or you can look at case studies. That's our whole website. But everywhere, I don't make pitches anywhere. So like I just do content in podcasts, talking about problems, offering viable solutions. That's what my social feed is. That's what my personal podcast is. That's what our newsletter is. But if you go to our website, you're going to get prompted to buy our stuff because that's why you're there. And that's 10% of our content. So that's how I think through it. So when you ask the question around like thought leadership, I think the reason any of our stuff works is because I have a different perspective, which is like if you focus on why ABM programs fail first, and instead of trying to like build all these really crazy things, you're just like, well, there's really well documented reasons why this stuff fails. What if we just like fixed that? And if we fix why things fail, by default, we'll win. Crazy. So like that's all I talk about. And then inevitably people are like, oh, I could probably get some help with that. And then they buy. So that's it.
Yeah. Well, and I think the thing I'd add to that is I think it's important when you talk about what the problems are that you use like words that people actually use when they speak. Because oftentimes we kind of, especially I think in B2B, tend to fall into this like weird vacuum where we like use these, I don't know, we use words that like the average person would not say in a normal conversation as like what we do and the problem that we solve. So I know from, having 20 years of experience doing this, when I read content that is like, I was just having a conversation with someone else about that the other day, or that feels like I feel seen by what they're saying because it sounds like me. It feels like the problems that I have. It's so much more compelling. And it makes me feel like they actually understand it versus saying all of these buzzwords that mean absolutely nothing to me. And I don't know, I can't tell you how many websites I go to these days where I'm like, what do you do?
Yeah.
Like, who are you for? What do you do?
Yeah. As I go back to the conversation we had at the beginning, just around targeting, like I'm building like a 3-hour workshop for B2B MX and 20 minutes is focused on targeting. And actually, the team that called me out on it was like, you're using TAM, term, SAM, SOM, ICP, CCP, TAL. Like, and that's a section. I was like, I hear you. And like, I want to make the language more simple, which is why I defined the terms in really simple language of just like your serviceable, attainable market, or just like what number of customers could you feasibly actually work with in the next 5 years. So like, I don't have to use like the word SOM. I can say, well, who are the customers you want to work with in the next 5 years? The challenge I'm running into is like, these are still the words in the language that is used by many executive leadership teams and by investors. So to be clear, I have for the past 2 years been rebelling against all dumb terms. And I say that as a guy that named a company an acronym. So I see the irony in that. Regardless, I think that there is a need to still understand what the terms mean and to be able to speak that language, because that is the language that is being spoken in a lot of these executive level conversations. And if you want to go get buy-in for building an account-based program, you've got to get executive buy-in, but then also like being able to speak it in plain speak so that it's not, everybody just rolling their eyes or going to sleep because you've spoken literally. I mean, in the workshop, it's going to be first start with your LTGP to CAC ratio, then identify your TAM, then your term, then your SAM, then your SOM, and then based on your SOM, look at your CCP, so then clarify your ICP, then build your target account list. Cool?
Whew.
Like, that
Sounds like fun.
actually something I plan to say as a joke,
Yeah.
but also like, it's not a joke. Like, that's the actual process, and I just hate that we have all these acronyms. They're kind of dumb, but anyway, hopefully that's helpful.
Awesome. So one thing I would love to get your perspective on is I think especially with marketing, there is this balance between driving immediate results, because everyone needs more, now, with working on initiatives that drive long-term impact. And we talked about this a little bit earlier around how like the role of marketing is really about like brand awareness and creation. How do you kind of think about specifically marketing and sales working together to drive immediate results, and marketing supporting sales in that effort, but then also doing things that are going to help you? Because I love that you keep talking about like how many customers do you want to get in 5 years. I think oftentimes people are too short-sighted and they think like this year. So how do you balance those, or how do you tell customers to balance that?
Really great data from the book called The Long and Short of It, that outlined that the appropriate budget allocation for a B2B brand is 60-40. So 60% should go towards brand building, 40% should go towards what is referred to as sales activation. And sales activation is just very simply like pipeline programs right now that fill the pipeline. The challenge that we get into often is, like, if you ask a team of marketers, hey, could you fill the pipeline right now? Most of them honestly feasibly could. Like, and it's actually, and I hate to say it, like, it's not crazy hard. It's just a lot of work. The challenge is when they've done it, then their executive team is like, sweet. Like, I know that we can go into this gear. So now this is our new baseline. I was like, no, like, we did this. We actually damaged audience trust. We like pulled demand forward, and now we've actually lost a lot of goodwill with our audience that we need to like rebuild. That's the purpose of brand building. So when I look at it, it's pretty simple. Like, there's likely 4 or 5 places you can look to build pipeline right now that are in your existing database. You build those into repeatable pipeline generation programs, and that's what keeps the sales team fed, plus anything that is coming in from the brand building activities. And once you put those two things together, you should keep a consistent pipeline that is growing year over year. It's just not going to be, insane 4,000% growth. It's just like probably reasonable, realistic, and efficient growth. So if you haven't looked it up, just Google brand building versus sales activation. There's a chart. Sales activation is really up and down. Brand building is stair step. But again, that's how you strike the balance. And then the final thing that I've said many times, but the marketing team should think long term, but long term doesn't get here if we don't deliver in the short term. So like every time I've had a really cool, crazy long term idea, like 3 years ago, I hosted a conference that was a virtual conference on ABM that like was a day long virtual conference and had no revenue goals around it. It was entirely a brand play just to like be a part of the conversation. I got to do that because our pipeline was full, and stayed full for like 6 months. So again, if your pipeline's full, no one really typically cares what marketing is doing. They only start to freak out about they only start to freak out what marketing is doing when pipeline is low. So just keep pipeline full through repeatable processes like close, lost, customer win backs, champion tracking, event activation, and website re-engagement. If you do those 5 every single month, you should have a full pipeline.
Love that. What is the one thing you wish go-to-market teams would stop doing immediately?
Layoffs. But that's a separate conversation. No, I mean, it's I think we just keep hiring people on hopes and prayers that they'll be able to somehow hit the goals that we set out, and they're not based in data. And as a result, we just really overhire and then really quickly overfire. We were talking with a potential client that wanted to help us. We were going to build an ABM program, and they just did a 50% company layoff, and like they weren't a small company. I mean, they're not huge, but like probably lost a few hundred people. Everybody got blindsided. Like CMO, VP of demand laid off, and now they've got a bunch of managers, directors, and like one head of demand now that's like leading this department without really executive marketing leadership at the table. So like just kind of, yeah, that's what I wish that people would appropriately hire for what they need. I actually, this is going to sound, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, well, and I think that starts with like having realistic goals created, because I think a lot of times that happens because unrealistic goals are being created, and they think the solution is to, on marketing or sales, hire more people for goals that they probably, even with more people, can't obtain, because you only have such a big target account list, and you can only go through it so quickly without burning it.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, like the target account list, if done well, should be people that you have deep, great conviction that you can massively benefit. And then it becomes, there's been a recent transition in the way that I think about selling that's like ethical selling. So like, if I know that you are in pain and that when you pay me, you'll get a way greater return, is an ethical obligation for me to help you buy my stuff. Like, and you don't get that level of conviction unless you actually like know that you help people. So that's where I think it's way easier to then set goals based on genuinely who all could we help? What is our capacity to actually help these people in a way that we feel morally and ethically aligned with? So that here's the other thing. I just optimize for how I sleep at night. Like if I still continue to sleep well at night, I know I'm probably doing the right things. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm a business owner. There's things that like I get stressed out at times, but like I don't struggle going to sleep, and that's kind of what I optimize for. And I don't think many go-to-market leaders could say that.
I would agree. So last question, what is your biggest go-to-market confession?
This is going to be really bad. I don't have an ABM program for us, and what we do for our clients right now, it's not actually what we do for ourselves. We're fixing that, but like, I think you have to have product market fit to build an ABM program, and like we have done a product market fit 'cause we're like a year and a half old business. So that's my biggest confession. So we have a lot of people that come to us that are like, "How did you do what you did?" And I was like, "It won't work for you. You have to." So there's that. That's my biggest go-to-market confession.
You've been listening to GTM Confessions. If you love what you've heard, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast. And don't forget to tell a friend.